actively participate with projects where we're engaged with a local government. So they will provide review of scopes of work. They will actively sit and participate on a steering committee to guide a project, and they'll also provide very valuable technical assistance related to the services that they provide. Once a plan is completed, we don't go away. We stay in close contact with all of our previous partners, and we support their implementation efforts to implement a plan. We offer their assistance and our assistance to them, and we also track as much as we can every single step that they're able to take, whether it's an update to a zoning code or actual construction of new development. Staff also annually publishes a community planning program implementation report, and that report is based on data points that are collected from the previous year to try to gauge on an annual basis the progress made towards implementing a plan. So those data points include housing development that's been constructed near transit, or policy changes, capital project improvements, and such like that. This year's report, Planning Community Connections, I believe has been provided to every one of you, so you can, in your leisure, take a look and thumb through that report. Highlights from the report include the identification of 40 new suburban developments that were in some form of implementation over the past 12 months in 2016. Either they were approved to be constructed by the local municipality, or they were under construction, or were recently completed in that year. These account for over 3,000 residential units that are now located near transit, over almost 300,000 square feet of commercial retail space, and over 100,000 square feet of office space located near transit. Our survey also showed that our municipalities and our partners were able to complete over 60 transportation-related improvements in their study areas, typically streetscape improvements and biking and walking improvements to enhance that walkability. Another way the RTA supports the implementation of the plan is through our Access to Transit Improvement Program. Through this program, we leverage federal funding to municipalities so they can construct small-scale capital improvements within their study area. Types of projects that are eligible through this program include those sidewalk connections and bicycle infrastructure and passenger waiting facilities at transit stations or at bus stops. The RTA's Access to Transit Improvement Program results in the construction of tangible improvements that our riders can see on a daily basis and use and help them access our system. Any past participant in the community planning program is eligible to apply for these capital dollars. They submit to us their application during a call for projects. We review all of those projects that come into us and select those that best fit the program. And then RTA staff bundles all of those small-scale projects into one single application for federal funding through the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program. We found that multiple small-scale projects bundled into one application, and the focus that these projects have on better accessing the transit system and in growing ridership make for a really strong case in obtaining funding. Matter of fact, just last week, for the third time in a row, we successfully gained CMAQ funding for another round of new projects. So we're very, very happy about that. Another way that we track implementation and kind of show the success of the program is through the occasional creation of a case study. So when we have a key community that's really standing out in terms of their efforts to implement a plan, we'll write a case study. And more recently, we've been doing online story maps to tell the story of the progress from the beginning of the planning stages all the way through to today and their successes. Online story maps are a unique virtual case study format that combines interactive maps along with text and graphics and images to really just tell the story. I was going to show you an example, however, that website is down this morning, unfortunately. It's not sponsored by us, but an outside agency. But I encourage you to go to our implementation page at some point, and I'm told that perhaps it's working. So We'll see. So this is the implementation section of our website, and here you can see a number of case studies and story maps that we've created. Here's one from Mundelein. And maybe it's still not working. But anyway, we use imagery and photographs and text. Here we go. So the user scrolls through. That's the interactive part. And we just start to tell the story of Mundelein. First of all, give it a little context, where it is in the region, where they are in the system. And then we go right into the planning aspects of creating a plan as we partnered with the village. And so website's up and running, but running a little slow apparently. But anyway, we tell the story of how we help them complete the plan. We bring up some imagery and some graphics that are part of the plan, as you can now see here, some renderings occasionally, and we help to show how, in this case, the Village of Mundelein would like to create a community space centered in the center of a new mixed-use development area that's adjacent to their rail station. We then go into the story of how the village has been implementing that plan. In this case, they've created a TIF district, they've revised their zoning. These are some examples from their zoning code as well as their new signage code. We then tell the story about where some of the development has taken place. In this case, Cardinal Square is a 9-building multifamily residential development on the east side of the tracks. 2 of those buildings are now completed. A third is under review by the village. On the west side of the tracks, this is the area that they would like to create that community space and a new town center. So we show how the village has taken those steps, first in creating this building here, which is the first around that new town center. It's a mixed-use building, including office space, and then here they've already laid that infrastructure in what was formerly an industrial area. And put in the road network, the sidewalk network, and they have that space now available for continued development. They've preserved some of the space, the industrial space, for business incubator purposes adjacent to the station. There's additional development called Fairhaven Crossing, so we document that and show what it looks like. And one of the recommendations of the plan was how to better provide connections on both sides of the tracks for pedestrians. So the village was able to obtain funding to create a pedestrian crossover. This is the concept at this point, and they're currently in the design phase of that project. So this is just a little bit of a story of the process of creating a plan and how a municipality can implement the plan. Let's escape out of this real quick. So on to the future of the program. We've identified projects that we'd like to undertake in 2018. We had a call for projects over the summer months in which we received 14 applications for assistance. And staff has reviewed each application, provided we've obtained feedback from our service boards as well on the validity of each project. Applications are evaluated based on the goals of our regional transit strategic plan, on the ability of the staff members and the municipality to implement the plan, and other strategic measures as well. We finalized and narrowed down that list of 14 down to 9. These 9 are listed on the screen right now. We conducted a public comment period on these 9 projects last month, and this meeting today is kind of our final step in determining projects to work on in 2018. So these include 3 TOD plans. 2 of them are updates, working with the Village of Maywood, the Village of Schiller Park, and the Village of Robbins in coordination with CMAP through their local technical assistance program. 2 corridor plans, one in the South Shore neighborhood of the city of Chicago, and 1 corridor study along the North Central Service. It's going to be a multi-jurisdictional project, but it's spearheaded by the Village of Mundelein. We'll help the Village of Bartlett revise their zoning code so it's more transit supportive, as well as the town of Cicero. And we'll assist the villages of Brookfield and Winthrop Harbor with some developer panel experience. Oops. And then finally, I'd just like to recognize that the month of October has been designated as National Community Planning Month by the American Planning Association. So this is an opportunity to kind of connect the role that the work that's done in the planning world goes towards creating these great places that people love to visit, love to live in, love to shop at. It's also an opportunity to educate the public about the detailed work that goes into creating these plans and about the implementation steps that are intricately made at the local level. So, and it's also our opportunity here locally to educate our constituents about the work that's taken place to create these great spaces around our transit network and our transit system. It's the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Any questions or comments? I have one. I'm glad to see that something as simple as the sidewalks are part of these projects, because as Michael can tell you, talking to a lot of our ADA passengers, part of their problems is they'd love to take fixed line routes, however, they have no access to get to the routes. So I think as we look at these projects, if we can keep in mind something as basic as a sidewalk and simple costs involved in a sidewalk can really make a difference in a lot of people. So keep it up, and I think it's a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have a question?
Go ahead. I just had a comment. I think the report was excellent, and Mundelein is a great example. I've been to that site, and it's really thriving, and the village is totally committed to it. The one thing, Mr. Chairman, I was wondering if it would be possible in the future to, in the written report, not in the document, but just in the memo, to include who the applicants were that did not get the award, because sometimes, we get asked by somebody, why didn't you fund this program? We have no clue what they're talking about. I know it was in the original document, but if they do it in this final one, it'd be nice.
I don't think that'd be a problem.
Thanks.
Just a comment to echo Director McGallis's kudos. This is great stuff, and the Tribune did a very nice piece a number of months ago that highlighted transit-oriented developments. They did an editorial about, how do you rebuild iconic downtowns of suburban Chicago. And then recently at the APTA meeting in Atlanta, the American Public Transportation Association, they used our Orland Park. They prominently talked about our Orland Park project. So great stuff, and, this really improved people and commuters' lives and really do spur economic development in many of these communities, aside from the most important thing, which is making it more convenient for riders. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other? Director Straney?
You mentioned $20 million since 1998. How is that broken down? I mean, does the cost share vary by project? The village gives more?
It does. The cost share does vary. I don't have specific percentages of the breakdown, but a large portion of the funding towards the program is from federal dollars, and we use Unified Work Program funding to complete a lot of the work that's done in the program. RTA funding is also a piece of the pie. It's not the majority of the piece, and then also local community match from the local communities is also in play. So the match varies on the type of project as well as the community's level of need. So the match will range anywhere from a 5% small match for high-need communities all the way up to a 20% match. So they definitely have some skin in the game, so to speak, as well.
Director Frager?
Yeah, I want to compliment you on sticking to it. I know what I'm kind of a planner, and I know how long it takes to get these things motivated, and I'd certainly like to give you a lot of compliments for your sticking to it.
Thank you. Thank you. You're absolutely right. And Chairman, you had mentioned Orland Park. We completed a plan with them 17 or 18 years ago now, and it's taken this long for the transformation of that station area, and they continue to work on it to this day.
Wow, persistent.
Persistence.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the Community Planning Program presentation and release of the 2018 program of projects. Jill.
I think that's
Oh,
one.
I'm sorry, yeah. The presentation of the regional consumer marketing campaign. Susan. I'll get it right yet. Thank you.
Thank you, directors. Like the previous presentation, this does not require a vote. I'm giving this as an update for reasons I think you'll understand. Today, I'll be updating the committee on the overall performance of the Ride On Regional Marketing Campaign. It began in 2014 as a $5 million multi-year regional marketing effort managed by the RTA. Today, 3 years later, the contract between the RTA and the vendors who worked with us is set to end. The campaign created powerful and well-received advertising we hope to continue to use. As a reminder, the campaign was built on the premise that the CTA and Metro and Pace do more than simply get a rider from point A to point B. They help maximize lifestyle by saving time, money, even enhancing peace of mind. The campaign exploits the pain points of driving, the stress of driving, loss of time spent in traffic, money spent in parking, things we all know all too well. The three main objectives of the campaign were to increase awareness of transit, improve the perceptions of the transit system, and grow ridership in 4 key markets. This is where I go? B? There we go, I did it. Let's remember what those target markets... No, it's okay, thank you. Let's remember what those target markets were. The campaign focused on riders outside of traditional peak period, peak direction commute that make up a significant portion of our system's ridership. Instead, the campaign was mostly aimed at smaller markets, such as reverse commuters, seniors, tourists, and occasional riders. These markets were focused on to take advantage of unutilized or underutilized capacity on our transit system. So how do we speak to these markets? Ride On kicked off with 4 humorous 15-second spots on cable TV and digital pre-rolls showcasing the worst parts of driving. Throughout the campaign, messages were also presented on outdoor billboards across the Chicagoland area and followed up with digital banners and social media posts. They were also tailored towards seasonality. We secured nearly 700 million media impressions with this campaign, and we did it efficiently with the financial bottom line in mind. Digital technology allows us to hone in on those markets I mentioned earlier. For instance, based on the information Facebook collects about users, we were able to aim at users who were closer to the demographic of those 4 target markets. Often, this resulted in users seeing an RTA ad more often and produced heightened awareness. Based on our media buyers' relationships and negotiations, we received 20% more impressions than we paid for, getting a good bang for our buck. We gained efficiencies with video ads by shooting all 4 spots at the same time, and then we were able to repurpose those spots for broadcast, pre-roll, and Hulu ads. We supplemented our shot photography with stock photography, and throughout the campaign we were flexible and able to change tactics to reach the most residents possible. As recently as just a month ago, we launched a video series highlighting taking transit to sites in our region. We purchased ad time on ABC's Chicago's social media platforms, and ABC paid for the video production. Throughout the campaign, we did research to gauge its effectiveness. Overall, we conducted 5,000 online interviews. That means we actually surveyed 5,000 people. We came in contact with many more who for some reason weren't qualified or applicable to our research. Looking at the campaign's goal of awareness, we saw success. When respondents were asked if they remembered seeing the ads recently, the number that said yes grew year over year. In addition, the percentage of survey responses that show campaign awareness was higher in this work than our research partners usually get in similar campaigns. We also surveyed residents who said they were already aware of the service boards to gauge perception. We want to highlight a couple of these results here. Now, there were some general trends. Positive response numbers tended to jump from 2015 to 16 and flatten in 17. Our research analysis shows that dip may be due to changes in the transportation landscape. It is different in 2017 than it was in 14, as we all know, due to low gas prices, changes in population, more telecommuting, and of course, growth of rideshare and ride-hailing technologies and discounted parking apps. CTA and Metro saw no decline in perceptions. Let's look at 2 questions and see how those surveys responded over time about each service board. Does the service board offer a great value for money? Many of our ads focused on saving money with transit, even with some fare hikes during this time. And the service board is great to take with friends, visitors, and guests, again focusing on the target markets we aim for. These scores show the percentage of residents who are aware of each service board and feel the statement actually describes each one. So let's look at them. CTA. In 2015, 36% of those asked said they felt CTA offered a good value for the money, and that number grew to 38% this summer. The number who feel that CTA is great to take with friends, visitors, and guests rose from 31 to 32% over the campaign. Looking at Metra, in 2015, 32% of those asked said they felt Metra offered a good value for the money, and that number grew to 33% this summer. The number who feel that Metra is great to take with friends, visitors, and guests rose from 24 to 27% over the campaign. And finally, PACE. In 15, 42% of those asked said they felt PACE offers a good value for the money, and that number held steady. And the number who feel the PACE is great to take with friends, visitors, and guests dropped a bit from 57 to 53% over the campaign. Overall, the campaign was successful in achieving our goals in perception and awareness. As we discuss regularly at our board meetings, public transportation is facing ridership challenges throughout the nation. A moment ago, I mentioned many of the reasons for this, including the advent of ride-hailing services. Just last week, there was a study released by the Institute of Transportation Studies at UC Davis. The study surveyed more than 4,000 adults living in 7 major markets in our country, including Chicago. It looked at the impact of ride-hailing services on transit use. Most respondents said they didn't change their transit use, but those who did rode the bus less often. The 2 main reasons they gave was transit services are too slow, and I travel at time when no transit services are available. Which leads me to this interesting slide I want to share with us all, which is a result of the Ride On campaign research. We've been tracking awareness of the choices in transportation in our region over time. The research firm we work with has asked this question every year since 2014. There are several important items to note here. In July of this year, about 30% of the respondents said they'd ride CT, Metra, and Uber. That leveling off in response, with Uber appearing as an equally attractive option, shows the range of choices, really transportation competition in our region. It should be noted that these rides could make up the same trip. A suburban rider could choose Metro for the long part of their trip and then complete the trip with an Uber ride home. And we know this competition may be more intense in the urban area when we look at a relatively short CTA bus ride versus a longer Metro ride. Second, look at the growth in the Uber and Lyft answers since November of 14 to this summer. These show we should continue, I believe, in all ways possible to communicate the benefits and importance of transit in our region. As you know, our region is discussing challenges in bus speed and aging equipment in our next regional strategic plan, which I know this group has heard a lot about as well. So where do we go from here? This ad campaign won several awards and was very well received. We've made good inroads in marketing to riders, but to better understand attitudes and behaviors, we need to do more to refine the messaging in light of changes in this transportation environment. In the short term, we're continuing to run some of the award-winning ride-on ads. However, RTA staff is doing the media buying, which eliminates the fees charged by the media buying company, and we're buying far fewer ads. Later on this board agenda, you'll see a request to enter into a contract with an integrated PR and marketing firm. As part of the work in this contract, we plan to do even more research on how residents and riders are responding to the changes in the transportation landscape. We think it's important to maintain a communications and outreach presence in our region, even with, and perhaps because of, the serious challenges we face. We have to continue to let riders know about the importance of our system and that it must be maintained for future generations. It's my hope that once we complete some non-campaign related research, I come back to this board with a plan to create and execute a communications and public outreach campaign that will specifically address the changes in our landscape. Before I close, I want to be sure to mention the other RTA staff members who worked very hard on this campaign. Mark Miner, who oversaw this campaign until about 6 months ago and presented to this board several times on it, and then began working on several other important agency-wide projects. Nicole Berry, marketing manager, who continues to work with me on it. I want to thank our colleagues at the service boards for their support and input on this campaign, and of course our external partners, Downtown Partners, Holland Partners, and MBI. This was truly a team project, and I want to thank everybody who participated. And now I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Director Lewis?
Susan, could you help us understand, this is excellent work, but in terms of correlating that to the tactics that we're taking, for example, like on the Lyft and Uber, we've talked before about trying to align ourselves with them more closely. So could you discuss any actions that are taking place as a result of the analysis that you've done?
Sure. Well, it sort of varies by service board, to be very candid. I think probably all of you know that Metro has partnered with Uber, a marketing partnership. If you ride a Metro chain, you're very likely to see ads that say, you know, if we can't get you home, here's somebody that can. A CTA feels a little differently about it. I wouldn't want to speak for CTA. I see some nodding heads. So at this point, we know that for this campaign, we made some inroads in perception and awareness. The ads were just terrific, and everybody loved them. And frankly, they were entertaining. If they're not entertaining, they're not going to keep anybody's attention. So now that's sort of what I'm saying. What do we do next? And outside of this room, we all read the newspapers. We see what's going on in the last few days, even at City Hall, with some of these, same issues. How can we get maybe some of those fund to fund transit? So we're figuring out what to do next. I hope that's a satisfactory answer.
Director Hobson?
Yes, thank you. Do you know what the margin of error was on this survey?
I do not. I can get that. But I
Okay,
do
that
not.
would be great.
Yeah,
And
of course.
is the full survey available to us?
Yeah, sure. I can get you the whole thing.
That would be terrific. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Anyone else? Chairman?
Just to clarify, I think at the last meeting when we talked about strategy, we talked about ride share in a couple different ways as in a conversation, but we also talked about maybe making public transportation consider why rideshare is so popular and whether we could adopt some of those behaviors and use kind of a rideshare plan. I know that for CTA, they feel like it's a, not known what the right thing is to do. And obviously Metro's decided to partner with them. But, so I think it's different by service board, but I think we also have to talk about what makes that, which could be part of the next research.
Right, exactly.
That, because that's
Exactly.
still unknown.
Well, it's certainly technology. I mean, that's part of it. I mean,
That's
there
right.
was a CTA press release recently that
Yes.
CTA is doing some work to help Red Line riders know what the capacity is based on going to Cubs games. Well, there's no need to giggle. I thought you were giggling about the Cubs, sadly. Okay, good.
That's serious matter,
That's serious
too.
business. Anyway, so you're right. I mean, I think everybody knows that. So and we've had a lot to deal with this season. I mean, so.
So maybe this isn't a fair question to ask, but when you compare us to some of the other major cities, are the numbers have improved.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, you can see that it probably correlated directly to the campaigns. I'm a marketing communications person, so I like marketing. But is it fair to ask how we might compare to another major cities on the understanding of the benefits and I would be more likely to ride CTA or whatever?
Well, there are a couple answers. I mean, when you look at the 10-pack that is our peers, we're still ahead of them. In the top bit in terms of ridership loss, in terms of ridership numbers. What you see around the country is a lot, and we know this, I'm going to sound like a lot of systems investing in their system, investing in bus-only lanes. Yes, they have to deal with the competition, and let's be honest, with the Metro situation, I mean, sometimes it complements our system. I mean, we've said that from the very beginning. But what do? Do you get rid of slow zones? Do you get more bus lanes? Do you put more money and deal with the cuts from the state, figure out how to do that, as we're all doing, get more money in our system? Is that a way to keep people on our system? That's what you're seeing our peers do.
And I think that's something that, as you all heard, we're grappling with in the strategic plan. That's kind of the first forum for us to really do that. We've talked about it's not necessarily one size fits all across the entire region. We're a large region, a diverse region. And I think so the plan will sort of help guide us in terms of some policy direction and then ultimately look for actually implementation and action items to come forward starting next year on how we want to interact in that space and the changing landscape that we deal with.
Makes sense. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Chairman?
Leanne and I went to see all three service boards, and we appeared before their full public meetings. And it was interesting. At a couple of those meetings, members of the service boards said they thought we didn't stress the saving of the environment and the green savings as well as we should have, knowing that our targeted audience in many cases is the millennial generation who cares about pollution, who cares about the environment. And they pointed out that these ride-sharing services plug up downtown. There are cars that are idling all the time, and they are certainly, they make congestion worse for everyone, not just slowing down the 151 bus up and down Michigan Avenue, So they sort of have a negative impact in terms of our travel time. But they just said, look at all the extra congestion, look at all the extra pollution. To a market millennials who use Uber probably or Lyft or one of the services more than others, and they said, you guys need to stress the green. And then they pointed out fare increases or no fare increases, if you dump the pump and if you get rid of one car if you have two, or if you ride mass transit, it is an $11,000 a year savings. That is a massive amount of money to the students or the average working person that is out there. An $11,000 a year bonus to you if you take mass transit, without getting into the things we've advertised on, which is Wi-Fi service and your ability to relax and read and things like that. And then they also said make sure that we point out that even for non-riders, the average person on the road saves over $400 a year. It's hard to believe because we have congestion, major congestion in Chicago. But if we didn't have the RTA system, every driver would not only be slowed down more, but would have another $400 in gasoline bills to have to put in their car for the extra idling time on mass transit. But one of the things, Susan, that Leanne and I heard from our service boards was they think in whatever marketing campaigns we need to stress the environment and how much cleaner we are for the environment. And I thought that was a good suggestion, knowing that millennials are a pretty hard target audience that's out there.
Anyone else? I have a couple. I'd like to compliment you on your social media. I think that obviously is the way to go. And I hope there's a diversity marketing plan also involved to get to the diverse markets. I think that's important. And I hope that we're sharing some of your award-winning commercials with the Amazon group, the group that's going after Amazon. I think that may help in trying to get them to come over here, because I think we did an excellent job with Dump the Pump and everything. So kudos to your group.
Thank you very much.
Okay. If there's no more further business to come before the public session of the Planning and Administrative Committee, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Director Hobson, Director Fraga, all those in favor? We stand adjourned.